Hi, and welcome to this lecture. We're going to be talking about a couple of different things today. One of which will be how to get to the Blackboard items that we need to view. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into discussion board here in the classroom right here on this left of announcements. And in order for you to create some responses, the first talkback reading response, death of the author, you click on this link and create a thread. So if I just go into somebody else's thread, it's just going to give me their thread. It's not going to give me any information about what to do. So, but if I go into create a thread, what I get is all of this information about how to do this part of the project. And then I get a space of how to respond here. And then what I get in addition, and I'll make this screen smaller so we can see it, I'll drag it up, is I get a place at the bottom to submit. So then I just submit my answer here in this space with the subject. And if I save it as a draft, what'll happen is I won't have anything. I'll just have something that only I can see. It's like a private conversation between yourself and yourself. But if I hit submit, then it's going to go and it'll be directed the same way as the others have been. They end up going to my gradebook. Okay, so what I want to talk about a little bit in this video is the canon. And this is the Western canon. So the Western canon is what we've been talking about in our reading. And how great books become the chosen few. How do schools and universities and really the educated come to value certain texts over other texts? And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about that a little bit. Second. So what is a canon? The canon is the prescribed documents or books. The de facto canon emerges from actual practice. It might not have any official status. So either it's the one that people really follow, or the de facto is one that we start using books and then it ends up becoming part of the canon. So it may not originally have been. So the official and unofficial. The word canon is from the Greek, meaning a rod and a rule in law. Had religious meaning with the Bible, and now is an educational concept. That refers to specific literary texts that are used in syllabi and curriculum for universities and schools. So the books we use are such as Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, other difficult books, Scarlet Letter, Great Gatsby, and these are the books that are used by schools. And this table is grades 9 through 12, which is where the canon begins to take importance. The canon wars are something that I studied quite a bit when I was doing my master's degree. And the canon wars are basically different groups of people who either feel that the canon is significant, important, and good as is, or they feel like people are not included in the canon from certain groups and they should be, such as their gender bias, their nationality bias, there are cultural biases with the canon, meaning that the Western canon is primarily a white canon and doesn't include a whole lot of multi-ethnic variety. So the debate has been fierce, and then it was 1990s when there was really, it began to become an attack. So conservative backlash fought against, and really Harold Bloom and Guillory were different people who started really going head-to-head with one another. So Benton referred to canon wars that raged in higher education between those who supported the unitary canon and their challengers that wanted more pluralism, so more different types of literature that we don't currently elevate to a higher status. So issues of power representation and academic freedom continue to this day in regards to canon questions. So traditional arguments in favor of a canon focus on the need to preserve the best of a nation's cultural heritage. So the question is, what is the best of our cultural heritage in America? Does that include indigenous writings? Does that include African American writings? Does that include just this highly educated subset of people who are generally well off and given liberty to have this writing as a vocation? So more recently, arguments centered on the need for a variety of social groups in reading lists. The traditional elitist argument for a canon has been reversed to suggest that unless there's a representative canon, literary study in universities and schools will not be properly balanced. So how should the canon be revised? That's the question. So quality is central to this whole, how can we revise the canon? The canon will never go away. The canon is something that will always be, because we have to have some consensus on what people study. And there's some varieties of sway in that some things can be thrown in, but a primary text is a primary text. So not reading any Shakespeare throughout high school seems like that may not happen. Although in colleges, Shakespeare has become, at least at UAA, an optional course for literary studies. So it used to be a required course. So these things do change over time. So the references that are Shakespearean, many people would lament that it's sad that they may not be as prevalent because we're not all studying exactly the same thing. So in classical times, how this started was Alexandria librarians began to make a list of the poets they judged the most deserving to be studied and kept. Almost all the works of Greek classical literature were lost. Just 7 plays out of each of over 100 written by Aeschylus and Sophocles were thought sufficient for teaching. So the instinct to preserve what is thought of as the best survives from classical times to the present, but judgments of quality have become problematic in contemporary debates. So Benton, his challenge to the canon discusses 2 directions that it takes, from post-colonial feminists and other theorists who, as part of an agenda for social and cultural change, question the dominance of white male bourgeois canonical texts. Arguments for widening the canon have been a part of the agenda for social reform. The other main challenge has come from curriculum modernizers, with writers focusing more on the curriculum relevant to young people in the modern age. So there's a couple of different influences, multicultural and modernism. Okay, so that is our short overview for this lecture. And what we're going to be going into next is we're going to be going into gender studies. So next, gender studies, and if you go under your announcements, you'll find that after those 2 discussion board posts, the talkbacks, and the video and your introduction essay, you have which is considered a formal essay. So the formal essay is something that I call performing criticism. So performing criticism is an extension or like a higher level discussion that you will have with me in paper in an MLA format. And that discussion is going to be performing criticism. It's worth twice as much as your original video and your original essay, because I'm expecting a high degree of citation from Susan Bordeaux's Unbearable Weight and John Updike's A&P story. So it's 1,500 words. And after negotiating the Bordeaux essay and Updike's short story extensively, and your ideas while reading both. So make notes while you read. It's really important that you include your own original ideas in your papers, as well as talking about the ideas of Bordeaux and Updike. Balance the 3. I recommend that you read Bordeaux first, because then when you read Updike, you're going to be reading it through that gender lens. And I want you to try this on. That's what cultural theory is that's what theory is, and it has a cultural aspect. So when we're talking about the canon is, one of the arguments is it doesn't include very many female writers. So something to think about when you're doing this gender reading by Updike is how we read text. So we're going to read the A&P, which was written in the 60s, which has fairly obvious gender issues. Not bad or good. I think it's a great essay. I love it, or I wouldn't use it. I also really like Updike, and I've done a lot of work on him. So it's not a negative thing. It's historical and gender perspective that I want you to try on. I want you to have fun with it, but be very clear and cite from the readings and even the quotes on the handout. So I made a handout. After going through Bordeaux's reading, I made a handout for you. So this is the handout, and this is the text of the handout. So there's a Word document, and then there's the handout. These are just the notes that I took. They're copy-paste. It's just the things that when I was reading through it, I found to be important for you to be able to study. So one thing that I want you to make sure that you cover is these ideas. Well, actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 primary ideas that I want you to cover from the Bordeaux reading. So, and I titled them here. That's not what the book titles them, but I titled them for your reference and for ease. So, women's rituals make the body. She says the body, what we eat, how we dress, the daily rituals through which we attend to the body is a medium of culture. Through table manners and toilet habits, through seemingly trivial routines, rules, and practices, culture is made body. So what you would look for in this story is you would look for these ideas, how they dress, their daily rituals, the rules. All of these are in the story. So there's some rules, there's some clothing issues, and their women's bodies betray intellect. So what I want you to talk about is the docile body, the body that just kind of lets whatever happen and doesn't kind of stand up for itself. So women's bodies are trained to be gendered. So if you find that in there, you would talk about it. Women's bodies become needy. They become docile bodies whose forces and energies are habituated to external regulation, subjugation, transformation, and improvement. So you would look in this story, which you will find areas where they needed to be improved. Their bodies were not sufficient. There are 3 ladies in this story, I think 3 or 4 ladies in the story. And you'll talk about how other people in the story wanted to make what they were presenting as their bodies unacceptable. So, and the people who are making their bodies unacceptable or in need of improvement are the males in the story. So you would talk about that. So women's bodies need men. A dominant visual theme in teenage magazines, which this is what Bordeaux says, involves women hiding in the shadows of men seeking solace in their arms. So you look for that rescue characteristic in the story and you will find it. So any of these aspects that you can find in the story by Updike would be exactly what I'm looking for. And then you would just talk about that in your essay, and you would just cite the Bordeaux and the AMP according to MLA style, which you can find at the OWL at Purdue, or their online sources for that as well. So it's really important that you do go through your readings and your responses. And keep in mind, these are all fairly short responses, fairly short readings, and fairly short papers for academic writing about literature class. So I look forward to your writing as usual, and I look forward to your essays. And I have posted for your enjoyment some student essays here in video blog entries that you can view. So be sure to go here and experience what your fellow students have done. So there's a student responses. This is just a video blog. And so you go in here and you can go and view what what other students in your class have done. So enjoy that. And if you haven't submitted a video blog entry, please do. You're just going to send me a response to the first 133 pages of the textbook and a video lecture 1. You can do it either through a video on your iPhone or any other smartphone or any phone that will take a video. Or what I did was I got a Logitech screen capture for, it's a video audio that I added to my monitor. And that produces a higher quality visual and sound. So you can do either one. And just a short response. a couple minutes of thoroughly talking about that first video and or the first 133 pages of your text. And you can see what other people have done. So don't be intimidated. Just try it, and I look forward to it. Have a great week.